it isn't enough to keep going. Have you heard of Maslow's triangle of needs? I think it's Maslow, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right or not. But he basically postulated that people's needs in life were hierarchical. That rather like the roots of the tree, the base had to be satisfied before you could get up into the air. And he drew a pyramid, and on the bottom of it he thought were physical needs: food, shelter, air, not being sick, I guess. Above that were kind of like social needs. Or maybe I should say societal needs. I'm not sure which is better. The need to have a reasonable degree of certainty that you're not going to have someone put a bullet in your head, I guess. That you live in a secure house where people aren't going to break in and take all your stuff. A feeling that you are not in a totally hostile society, I guess. And on top of that, there were other things, kind of more emotional needs, companionship, self-esteem was, I think, one level higher, and a feeling of value and all of this. And at the top was so-called self-actualization, which, as near as I can tell, seems to be what someone does with their life that defines them. And his hypothesis was that you need to have your base established before you can go on to the one above and begin to establish that, because people don't recognize the higher concerns until the lower ones are satisfied. So the person who can't eat will never think about whether he has a secure house or not. He'll just be thinking about where his next meal's coming from. The person who has an insecure house really won't be bothered if he's worried about being robbed or killed or something. To worry about whether he has good friends or whether he has self-esteem, and so on and so on. But actually, in my experience, the pyramid is often inverted. The lovesick teenager, or person in general, stops eating. They start taking risks, they start walking down dark alleys. The person with low self-esteem starts starving themselves, or starts generally not taking care of their appearance. The person feels lonely, so they stop taking care of themselves and they just start feeling sorry for themselves. Seen it happen. People lose a wife and they just stop shaving. They stop washing their clothes regularly. They stop taking regular baths. They stop looking after their bodies in the way they used to. Maybe they don't even bother to go to the doctors when they normally would over some little ache or pain. Well, some significant ache or pain, one would hope. But the point is, they lose concern for their basic needs because there's such a huge void or absence in their life higher up. You know, they say that some people, I would describe that there is at least two kinds of people in this world, if not a scale of grey between the two, and that is people who live on automatic looking for a reason, and then there are people who need a reason to live. They need the self-actualization to work, they need the self-esteem, they need the other things to be in place, to work down the triangle and care about the things beneath them. And if that's horribly self-indulgent and cerebral to the point of being asinine, then that's just the way some people are. And I think I'm probably heavily leaning on that side. But I do sometimes find reasons. I used to find more. I used to have little crusades when I was in uni. I get angry over something that stood in my way, or was frustrating me from having one little insignificant thing that I thought, well, why can't I have this? Because I couldn't fight the big giants, I just fought the little battles, but I didn't get any further with them than I did with anything else. And so I wrote letters and made arguments, and I won't say bullied, but I asserted my point of view quite firmly, as if to say, why won't the world change? Maybe I can't see a way to change the things that really matter in my life, but does it really have to be that everyone goes out of their way to make it so much harder by denying me things that I could have if they'd only step aside and let me do things the way I'd like? And I can get quite agitated about, obviously, or things that may seem very small to other people or that other people don't get. Like the mirror pool and the Odeon and all the conversions of old buildings that are going on, and the building on the Greenland at Leeds University, and architecture. Silly old architecture. Why should I care about the shells that hold human beings? Isn't it the human beings that are important? And I guess that's been one of my arguments in the past, that all of this expense spent upon this stuff, it isn't actually helping anyone, because it isn't addressing the human problems. You know, the people in this city don't take drugs and drink and abuse their children or their wives or their husbands or their lovers. They don't live in a self-destructive way or a mutually destructive way. They don't rob and steal and mug and murder. They don't do these things because they live in bad buildings. There are people who live in mud huts who don't do any of these things. Maybe because you put a lot of people with a lot of issues together, that's a problem. Maybe if we had some law where it says you'd have to vary the prices of housing, so it would be like cheap house, expensive house, cheap house, expensive house, cheap house, expensive house, all the way down a road, where you'd have to have like a block of flats built immediately adjacent to a load of luxury condos and semi-detached. But that isn't happening. They're just pretending problems don't exist by knocking down the buildings like some straw man and saying, hey, we've knocked down the building, everything will be fine now.